it's Donna, and I have received a lot of requests to go sign by sign through the new moon and full moon charts, and so today we are going to be doing that with this full moon chart for May. And since I really get interested in finances, this will be mostly about financial picture. If you guys are really interested in love relationships or home or things like that, just let me know in the comment section below and we can start to do that. Also, if you're new to the channel, welcome. Please hit the subscribe button, and if you like videos like this, hit the thumbs up button. It really helps out the channel. There are going to be timestamps in the description box below. I'm also going to place a symbol so you can see when you scroll through what your sign is, but also listen to the sign of your moon sign and your rising sign if you know it, because those can give you a lot of insight into what's going on also. And if you need a copy of your chart, there is a link in the description box below where different places where you can get a chart, or you can always email me with your birth information and I'll send you a PDF of your chart. Aries. So we start off looking at the second house, and the second house has Uranus, Sun, Mercury in the second, and the Uranus, of course, will be there for a long, long time, but Sun, Mercury will be there for a short period of time. Now, each of these planets are pulling money from various houses. The Sun is pulling money from the fifth house, that's creative endeavors, or working with your kids. Maybe your adult kids have a business, or maybe you're doing childcare. But mostly this is about creativity and taking some risks. Mercury is pulling money from the sixth house, which says work, work, work. It is also pulling money from the third house, which is communication. So as you talk to other people, you're able to connect and make money. And then Uranus is pulling from the 11th house. That's money derived from career, but also it says humanitarian organizations, charities. Maybe you are part of a big organization and you're receiving some benefit from it, or perhaps you are out there and maybe it's your job to distribute money and therefore you get a salary. But any sort of employment that you have, money is coming directly to you. So, of course, there's Taurus on the second house, which we look for the Venus to see where you are currently pulling money in from. And the Venus is in the third house, which reiterates what we said before about using communication to bring in money. That is, posting your resume if you're looking for a job, reaching out to people who might owe you money, making sure you invoice your clients, but also using your voice to say, this could be you writing or posting or doing something that brings you more clients. When we look at your investments, we do see for Aries natives some worry because the moon is in the 8th house, and wherever the moon is, we can feel that things are changing and not necessarily in such a positive direction. This doesn't necessarily mean that is so. It just indicates that there is worry there. But we see overall for your investments that some adjustments are needed as Venus is making in conjunct to Pluto, and this is that you should be looking at different ways of diversifying your portfolio, or perhaps looking at some different investments you should do entirely at this time. But you also are pulling in the energy from Mars and doing that Mars trine, and that is extremely beneficial for you. So we do have you finding the great investments and taking, whatever resources that you have to make investments in a very wise manner. So investments, while you are worried about them, actually show to be pretty good. When we look at your money derived from career, it starts on Saturn and ends on Mars, and so we have a lot of difficulty right at the beginning, but it gets much better towards the end of the period. And so if we look at this for a full month to the next full moon, then we know that the first 2 weeks, or just maybe the first week, could be difficult, and the last part of that period could be very good. So this indicates that maybe you're not working now, but will be working by mid to end of May. It also, we do though show overall difficulty because there is no aspect happening with the ruler of the second house to the ruler of the 11th, which does indicate that you're not making enough money to make you feel like you are in abundance of money. So perhaps you're making less than usual. Taurus. When we take a look at the money chart for Taurus, we see Venus and North Node in your second house. This is a strong indication of a desire to spend money, especially towards the end of the period, which could be 1 month into it or at least 3 weeks into it. And it doesn't necessarily mean that this is just spending money willy-willy. It can mean that these were very considered purchases. They are in Gemini, or Venus is in Gemini, and so it does say that you're thinking about it, but you're still spending money. When we look at where that Venus is pulling money from, we see it's coming from the 6th house, so you are working quite hard for your money. We also have it ruling the ascendant, so anything that you put your name on, anything that you say, I'm doing this project or taking the lead, will bring you money. It's also the North Node there, and the North Node's going to be there for another 18 months. And the North Node says that it is your life path to learn how to deal with money, how to accumulate it, how to distribute it. And this is just the beginning of this 18-month period. So you're going to hear me talking about this over and over and over again, and that is to start to now look at different ways of how you're spending your money and how you can pay different mind to your money. Now with the Venus there, it's going to be really challenging, and so you may have to wait until Venus moves on and out of this house for you to do that. Just recognize that, well, it's there now. You're going to have an aptitude or an appetite for spending money. Now when we look at where the Gemini on the 2nd house is pulling money from, it's pulling money from that Mercury in the 1st house, and that's very, very interesting because this Mercury is making the sextile to Neptune, and it's also making that trine to Jupiter and Pluto. And so we have these different aspects. We can even pull in that square to Mars, even though that one's a little bit wider. It is saying that this Mercury, again, when we're doing first houses, put yourself forward, put your name on things, say to the world, I'm going to be doing this. That is, post your resume. Don't wait for some headhunter to help you out, but you go to the company itself and say, I want to work for you. And also doing your own projects, running your own business, all of these things can help you draw money. Now, when we look at your investments, now you have the South Node going through your 8th house. That's really interesting because that means that you have either knowledge from your past or ancestral knowledge to draw on over the next 18 months to do better in investing. So research what your parents did and what your grandparents did and what your great-grandparents did when it came to investing, and look and see how they made money, how they handled bills and debt, how they did things, and look and see what are those aspects that you can draw from and what are the parts that you don't think are going to be useful going forward. Now, if we look at the relationship between Mercury and Jupiter, we do see that they are doing an extremely wide trine. There's such a desire to make money through investments, but it may not happen over this period. That the luck that you might be feeling might not actually prove to be true. So don't get caught up in just intuition, but actually do your homework and say, why am I investing in this? Or why do I feel this is the direction to go? It does say that you also may receive a promise of money that doesn't come through during this period, but may come through later. So don't get all stressed about it, but just maybe be patient because, as I said, this is quite a wide aspect. When we look at your money from career, we have Neptune there, and Neptune says there is some confusion about, when you're getting paid, what the payment's going to be. There might be cuts in your income, or cuts that were done in the past might be going back up. So there's just a lot of confusion going on. But when we look at the relationship that your money and you have with your money derived from career, we have a very good aspect. It's an exact sextile between Mercury and Neptune. And so what that means is you're able to cut through the fog and find out what it is exactly going on with your company. It does say that with a little activity on your part, with a little bit of energy exerted even maybe doing a little magic, that can really help you draw money in from your career. So that is, lighting candles, affirmations, meditations, prayer, those sort of things, they really work here. This is a sextile. It means that nothing happens unless you take an action. So taking an action would be a good idea. Gemini. All right, Gemini natives, you guys have an empty second house with the North Node just leaving, which is like a weight lifted off of your shoulders. This is just outside that house right now, and so it's just barely starting to feel better. But what you're going to find over the next 18 months is that money is much easier to get. So yay, good news, right? So where we see the second house drawing money from is that moon in the 6th, where you're pulling money in from work and daily activities. And that's all kinds of daily activities. That is the same as, if you're lighting a candle every day to welcome in money energy, or you're dusting off your Feng Shui cures every day. Anything like that, a daily action is what does it. But also, of course, the obvious going to work every day, that's what does it. So even if you're working at home or you're working on your own business, having the discipline to say, it's 9 a.m., so I'm at my desk, dressed, ready to go. When we look at your investments, we have Pluto and Jupiter in that house. Pluto is going to be there for a long, long time, I think until 2023. I'd have to check that, but Jupiter we know is going to be there for the rest of the year. Jupiter brings a lot of luck, and this does say that towards the end of the period, which for this case would be about a month, you do have the opportunity to capitalize on an investment. But these are such slow-moving planets that you're not going to feel them month after month after month. They do, though, overall say that you do need to be paying attention to your investments, that you have more power and more knowledge and more ability than you might think. And so it's time to read the books, do the study. You have a limited amount of time, even though it's a long period of time, but it's still limited to really gain expertise at creating passive income sources, creating your own business, which also falls in the 8th house, and also finding other resources. That is just getting people to give you money, like crowdfunding, where like Patreon, all of these different places where many people contribute to your well-being. When we look at the relationship that we have between Moon and Saturn, we don't have an aspect, or perhaps we could say, well, now I have to do math. So we have a 75-degree aspect, or a quintile. This is an aspect that actually gives you opportunities through math. And so that is, when it comes to investments, you really do need to be looking down at the weeds of it to say, what are the fees? How is this really, is it really going up? Am I looking at too small a sampling to determine that it's going up? Like really, pulling out the spreadsheet and figuring out if this is working. This is a hard aspect to actually actualize, and so it's overall the energy is that not much accumulation is happening this month in investments unless you get out the slide rule and the calculator and start to work the figures. I just told you how old I was because I mentioned slide rule. I'm not abacus old. I'm slide rule old. Okay, let's take a look at your money derived from career, and we have Chiron there. We're going to have Chiron there for a long time. This does indicate that overall in your career you are healing in some way, and that means that you're probably underpaid and you're still working out how to get more money. And the different ways are, asking for it, maybe taking on different types of responsibilities, or perhaps jumping to a new job but within the same industry, or perhaps just a transfer within your company. So, but this Chiron's going to be there a long time, so any sort of healing that you can do, whether that be through something very direct like that, or for more of a spiritual healing, like where you are doing automatic writing or tapping or hypnosis to clear money blocks, is very helpful. Now, we're looking at the relationship between the moon and Mars, and what we have is too wide to be an aspect, so we have no aspect there. These planets aren't talking to each other, so it's likely that there's not accumulation in money derived from career over this period, which is about a month. And so that means that either you're not making money from your career or you're making less than usual. Cancer. All right, Cancer natives, you have an empty second house, but that does not mean you can't make money. Your money is being pulled by the sun in Taurus in that 11th house of money derived from career. So you actually have a very good source of money coming in from your career. And so the opportunities to go back to your current job, to increase your hours, to increase your pay, or to find another job are extremely high. Now, if we look at your investments, what we see is we start on Saturn, we end on Mars. And so there is an awful lot of reticence at the beginning of this period, which lasts about 4 weeks, for you looking at your investments. I mean, you're going to have to just bite the bullet, like open the envelope, look at the totals, or go online. That's probably more obvious. Go online and look at your balances and see what kind of losses you've sustained and make some assessments there. This is Saturn in Aquarius, so it says to use technology to make logical assessments. Look at your decision making. Don't just jump into things. And towards the end of this cycle, you're hitting Mars, and this is going to allow you to make some really good decisions that are going to help you going forward. Now, if we look at the sun's relationship to Uranus, we don't have an aspect, but they are very close together. Now, the sun is, of course, going to zip along and not go and hit that Uranus for quite some time. In fact, to hit it by conjunction would be more than a year. But they are still in the same sign. So there is this energy of it. You can still pull that energy in. It just means that your opportunities are shrinking. So if you were planning to make some decisions about your business or your investments, the time is getting short. And so you need to do that pretty soon. As I already said, that your money derived from career is very strong. Uranus, Sun, Mercury in that house, pulling from all those different directions. That's fantastic. It does say that there's some instability at first when we hit the Uranus, but towards the middle of this period, with the Sun, Mercury, you are doing very well. In fact, this could indicate multiple jobs for you. So if you want them. When we look at the relationship between Sun and Venus for money derived from career and your ability to accumulate money, we have a semi-sextile, which again indicates to me that you are working overtime, you're working extra hours, or you're working a second job because you are making more than usual during this period. Leo. Leo natives, you have an empty second house, but that doesn't mean you can't pull in money. We are looking for Mercury, which is right at the top of your chart, and you are pulling money directly from your career. But also, as you make yourself known, as you announce what you're doing, especially if it's connected to your own business or to a business you're doing with partners, there you can pull in a lot of money. So that's fantastic. When we look at your investments, it's Pisces ruled by that Neptune in there. So you're a little bit uncertain about your investments. You're trying not to look at it, trying not to think about it. And that's actually the way to do it, is like, don't make any changes, don't look at it, don't stress about it, just let it be. So think of yourself as a long-term investor. Same thing with your business. If your business is humming along, this is not the time to be taking wild, crazy actions, but more just allowing it to settle. Now, the Pisces and Neptune does indicate that doing some spiritual things can help it along quite a bit. That might be prayer or affirmations or Feng Shui cures or things like that. Those things can be really helpful. Now, if we look at the relationship that we have between Mercury and Neptune, we have a perfect sextile. And that does indicate that money comes to you through these magical means. That is, if you are doing every morning a meditation for money, or lighting money incense or money candles or things like that. That helps focus you and increases your awareness to see money opportunities when they arise. So you have a great ability now to accumulate money through investments and through passive income sources because you're doing that. But this is a sextile. If you don't do anything with it, then nothing happens. And when we look at your money derived from career, we see Venus and the arrival of the North Node. And the North Node is going to be there for 18 months. It is going to go through this house, really challenging you to be on your path, to be doing something that you really want to do for a living. And because it goes through your money derived from career and then goes through your career house because it travels backwards, you actually have, what is that, 3 years and some change to get on your life path, to transition from whatever you're doing now to something you really enjoy doing. And so this is just the very, very beginning, the first few days of it, so no pressure. It's just that you may start to feel a little bit like you want to be doing something else, and so those little seeds are getting planted. The Venus there does indicate that money is coming in from a couple of different sources, and so that you might be thinking of getting a second job or doing some extra hours, and so your money derived from career is quite good. So, and overall, it says that when you are putting yourself on top, when you're taking a position of responsibility, when you're looking at your obligations and doing those, you are going to make money. But it also says that to every day be still for a little while and hear the messages of the universe, because that's going to also help you make money. Virgo. So Virgo natives, you have an empty second house, but that doesn't mean you can't make a lot of money this month. We are going to find Venus, because Venus is where you're drawing money from, and that is your house of career. And it's in Gemini, so it could mean that you are either doing 2 jobs, or you are doing a main job and you have a little business going, or perhaps you are transitioning from one job to another. And that could be within your company or outside of the company. And what Venus says here is that you, through communication, can get a lot of opportunities. And communication could be sending out resumes, talking to headhunters, talking to hiring managers, or just talking to colleagues that you have that have moved on. So you want to update your LinkedIn profile and update your resume on different job hunting sites. Now, when we look at your investments, we have Chiron going through the 8th house. It's going to be there a long time. You're healing in this area. It could mean that you have had difficulty doing investing or dealing with debt or getting resources from others in the past, but you are actively working on healing this. It could be that your parents had trouble with this or your grandparents had trouble with this, and this is ancestral. But the Chiron's going through this house for you so that you will heal. And that means that you need to actively be working on this. Perhaps you can be doing some meditations or hypnosis, or do some tapping, or any of these modalities that will help you release deep-seated unconscious blocks. Now, when we look at the relationship between Venus and Mars, we are actually doing the trine energy, and that means that you can, if you're working and removing your blocks, make some money through investing and just resources from others. That means you could be receiving government money or money from other people, perhaps through crowdfunding, or maybe Patreon, or maybe you have a YouTube channel and it's bringing you some money that way. So, but it says that money is being gathered for you from other sources. Now, when we look at money derived from career, we have the North Node that has just exited that house. And so it means that you're in the middle of the cycle of recognizing that you might not be in your exact right profession, but you're making that transition probably over the next 18 months. And so there has already been a lot of healing in this area when it comes to your vocation, but that process is still going on. When we look at the moon in the third house to represent that, it does say that your money derived from career is quite variable during this period, the next 4 weeks. So it's going to have some ups and downs. And when we check to see its relationship with Venus, we have the inconjunct, which does mean it is an aspect. So you are accumulating more money, but there's something uncomfortable about it, that you have to be outside your comfort zone and ask for more money, or maybe you're doing multiple jobs. Libra. All right, Libra natives, you guys have the moon in the second house, which means that for the next 4 weeks, you do have some worries or concerns about money. And that is something where it may not be true. You may not have a reason to worry, but just old patterns are emerging and these need to be dealt with. This is something where you need to recognize that what's going on inside of you might just be a reflection of what you've been reading or hearing about in the media and not necessarily your true experience. So this moon is pulling money from your career directly, and so that means that putting yourself out there rather than hiding, which a moon in Scorpio sometimes likes to do. And so you might be thinking, oh, okay, I don't want to be seen, but when you are seen, when you post more, when you go out and put your resume out there, or when in your job you just stand up and say, I'll take the responsibility to lead the next meeting, that's when success happens. Now, you're also pulling money both from Pluto and from Mars. When we look at the Pluto, it's in the fourth house. That could be options to make money through real estate or making money by working at home. Maybe you have some sort of home business or a business related to home like real estate or things like that. Also from the Mars, which is its co-ruler, which means that you're making money in creative ways, brand new ways. That's really great. So being creative and working with what you have, your resources at home, are ways you're pulling in money. When we look at your investments look quite good. We are doing Uranus, Sun, Mercury in that house. Uranus is going to be there for some time, bringing you lots of changes, but the Sun, Mercury, and Taurus are there for a short period of time, meaning that you can actually gain some money right now through having your own business, through your investments, or through people just giving you money. And so this is a great time to post something for crowdfunding, put up your Patreon site. Doing those things can help you pull in money. Now, we are looking at the relationship between Venus and Mars for your money, and you're doing the trine. So this means you are able to make more through your own business or passive income sources this month over usual months. So that's really good news. When we look at your money derived from career, you're pulling from the Sun, which says the 8th house. So it does indicate that money derived from career is directly connected to maybe government resources or things where there's more of a crowdfunding sort of energy. So that could be that you are working but not as much as usual, or you are receiving unemployment, or you are receiving some other benefits from a large organization to fund you at the moment. When we look at the relationship between Sun, Mars, we don't have an aspect, and that makes it difficult. We can even check with the Pluto, that co-ruler. We're not making an aspect, and so you are not making as much through your regular career as you normally do. Scorpio. All right, so you guys are doing the South Node in the second house, and that's really interesting because the South Node hasn't been there in about 18 years. It's going to travel through your second house for about 18 months, and it indicates that things that were easy for you to do in the past, or even your ancestors doing, or even past lives, are now accessible to you. That is past knowledge, past abilities with money. So that is really good for you. But it can cause you also to rely on old ways of making money rather than venturing out to do new ways, which will make you happier. So just a little reminder about this. This is the first days of this, where it's an 18-month aspect. You're going to hear me talking about it over and over, but it is mostly that right now those little seeds are that you might be thinking about going back to a past job or a past type of employment. It might not be necessary yet, but it's good that you have that skill set. When we look at your investments, we have Venus up there with the North Node. And now the North Node is that new energy that you're dealing with there. And that's going to last for 18 months as well. And so the Venus there does say that you're wanting to buy some investments, or you're wanting to invest in passive income sources. Perhaps you want to get a setup so you can do YouTube videos, or you are investing in somebody building you a website or helping you start your business. There is this energy of spending some money. So, and it does mean you can get some money, but it's clearly coming in and going out pretty quickly. Now, the North Node does say that it's part of your life path to learn to multiply your income through passive income sources or for your own business. And so anything sort of investigation or any sort of knowledge that you can gain during this time, which is a very long time, 18 months, but of how you can do this yourself rather than relying on other people is ideal. Now, when we look at the relationship between Mercury and Jupiter, we don't have an aspect, or we do, but it's super, super wide. I don't think you're going to be able to accumulate much money from passive income sources or your own business this month, but that is because the money is, as I said, going in and going right out for things that you want or things that you feel will help you get your words out. When we look at money derived from career, we do not have an aspect, and it is pulling money though from the 7th house. And so that means the more people you can talk to and connect with, colleagues you used to work with, business partners, mentors, or just reaching out to people on LinkedIn, that's the thing to do. It's the same aspect. It's no aspect between Mercury and Jupiter, which means that it is tough this month for you to accumulate money. That is that you might be making money, but not as much as usual. And so you do want to budget. This is going to change a great deal once these two planets get closer together. So look forward to future months where you're going to have real opportunities. So right now, be a good farmer, plant the seeds, because a harvest is coming. Okay, Sagittarius natives, let's take a look at your money chart, and we see Jupiter and Pluto there, Jupiter being your ruler. Jupiter is going to be there for the rest of the year, and then it will not be back for 12 years. Jupiter brings luck, it brings an ability to take risks, it brings the knowledge that you need when you need it. So you really, really want to be focused on money and capitalizing on this energy, because as I said, you only have till the end of the year to use this Jupiter. Pluto is going to be there for a long time. It's transforming how you handle money. That is, if you have been a little lax with your money, now's the time to put your written budget together, really count your pennies, look at your money from a whole different way where you're controlling your money rather than your money circumstances controlling you. When we look at where you're drawing money from, of course, the Jupiter is drawing it from the 1st house. That's you. So putting yourself out there, putting your name on things, standing up and being noticed brings you money. And then, of course, the Pluto is drawing money from the 12th house, which says magic and doing things from a spiritual basis. So doing a daily meditation, maybe lighting a money candle, doing prayer or affirmations can all help you draw money. Now, additionally, we have the Capricorn on the 2nd drawing money in from your 3rd house of communications. It's in Aquarius now, and so that is you pulling in money through sales, through communicating with others, maybe writing articles and posting them on LinkedIn, or reaching out to people through direct message. The Aquarius says, look for things that you can automate as well. So this could be like doing programs on a teaching site where you just wake up in the morning and you have new students and it's all automated. Your money from investments is being pulled from that moon in the 12th house, and that gives us back to that idea of the spirituality, maybe doing everything from deep meditation to a walking meditation. It is, perhaps like going through your client list and visualizing yourself, not only having a session with that person, but that they're sending new people to you. But it's a lot about doing things on the spiritual side rather than doing things overtly. Same thing about investments. Investments do show that spiritual component, but because the moon is in the 12th, it's hidden. And that means just don't open the statements this month. Just leave everything as it is. Allow the dust to settle and make your decisions on another month. When we're looking at your ability to accumulate money through investments and passive income sources, which includes having your own business, we don't technically have an aspect between Moon and Saturn, although we could say we have a quintile. A quintile is one of those kind of fussy aspects where if you do a lot of like math, if you do a lot of paperwork or something like that, you might be able to pull in some money. That would be looking at the investments, not from, panicking about what the balances are, but what is the fee structure that you're doing? What is the long-term plans for it? Maybe looking at the same thing with your business and saying, which products are you sending out that are really making you some money based on the costs and things like that. Again, this is a minor aspect. You may not want to work with that energy. You might just want to say, you know what, I'm just going to let this ride for a month. When we look at money derived from career, we have the empty house, but it is pulling money from Venus in the 7th house. That's fantastic. That means that every time you make direct communication with somebody, your boss, a mentor, a colleague, you have money opportunities coming to you. And it's Venus in Gemini, which does indicate it can come from multiple sources. So this is reaching out to people on LinkedIn, as well as the people that you know that are in your neighborhood who might work for the same company or in the same industry that you do. When we look to see how that relationship is going, though, between Saturn and Venus, we don't have an aspect, and that does indicate that you're not making as much money as you did last month. But trust me, that will change. Venus moves pretty fast, and it's about to go retrograde, and that does indicate that it will be going backwards and making some contact. So just be patient. It will get better. Capricorn. All right, Capricorn natives, you guys are doing Saturn and Mars in the 2nd house. Of course, Saturn is going to be there for about 2.5 years. It's going to go retrograde and it's going to pop back in your 1st house, but it will be back in your 2nd house, as I said, for 2.5 years. Nothing to panic there. I know if you read about Saturn, it talks about restriction and hard work and all that, but Saturn is a slow growth wealth aspect. So it is one of the best planets to have in the 2nd house. It just doesn't feel great to have it there because it does mean it's necessary to count your pennies, to watch your dollars, to make sure that you're not overspending. Now, you do have that starting the house and Mars ending the house, so it does indicate that towards the end of this period, which is about 4 weeks, that you will be making more money. That's great. So, but Mars can also spend money pretty freely, so you do want to watch out for a last burst of spending money towards the end of this period. The Saturn is pulling money right from the ascendant, the 1st house. That means the more confident you are, the more you put yourself out there with your name on things, the more money you're going to make. The Mars is pulling money from the 4th house. That means sources of money are family, real estate, things dealing with a home, working out of the home, or dealing with construction and things like that. All of those sources can make you money. It could even be that there's things around the house that you want to sell, and those could make you money. When we look at the 2nd house, it's pulling money from that Uranus in the 5th house. That means take some risks, of course, calculated risks, but it's time to get outside your comfort zone, at least by a little bit. It also says that creative things can make you money. So look at what you can create. Honestly, look at how you can create more than you're consuming. That would be ideal. So when you think of how much content you consume, consider how much content you create, and that could be in the form of videos or podcasts or things like that, or just the work you're doing for your job. How much are you creating versus how much are you consuming? When we look at your investments, we have an empty house, but we have it pulled by the sun from that same house, that 5th house, indicating that you do need to take a little bit of risks. You need to look at where your investments are, how they're doing, and see what changes you need to make. So it is an indication that through things that bring you joy and happiness and creativity, that you can make money through passive source of income. So that could be maybe that you're selling t-shirts online, or you're doing eBay listings, but there's something about how you write the description that's so creative. Maybe you are doing a business with younger relatives or your adult children, or maybe a cousin. And so all of these things can bring in passive income. Now, when we look at your ability to to make more money than usual, though we don't have an aspect which says that we are more working towards things, working towards success rather than making the money, because we have no aspect between Uranus and Sun. And so as they're in the same sign, you are making some money, but perhaps not as much as usual. When we look at your 11th house, we have the moon there. So there is some nervousness about the stability of income derived from career. It does mean that you might be worried that there's going to be pay cuts or layoffs. And while these may be founded, for the most part, the moon indicates that you're listening to the media rather than looking at what the truth is inside of yourself, because you know what's going on more with your company than perhaps the media does. So it is important that you go inside, and if you feel it's not stable, then you need to take some action. But if it is just that you're getting, all flustered because everybody else says there's going to be so many layoffs or so many cuts in salary that you feel like you can't even get to work, that's a problem. So don't let the moon energy overwhelm you. When we look at money derived from career, we are looking at the aspects between Uranus and Pluto and Uranus and Mars. And so when we look at Uranus-Pluto, no aspect, Uranus-Mars, no aspect. So we do know that you're not making as much this month in your career as usual. That doesn't mean that that's going to happen forever. That energy is going to change. But for now, there is that feeling that you are making less, perhaps because you've had some time off, because you're on unemployment, or because they are planning some pay cuts. So it is wise to expand your reach and look for more sources of income. Aquarius. All right, you guys are doing Neptune in your house of money, and this is going to be there for a long, long time. Neptune does indicate that the spiritual component is needed, that you need to find a way to get into the vibration of money, and when you resonate with that vibration, money comes to you. And some of that is just by asking yourself better questions like, how can I make $1,000 today? Or where are money sources that I might not be able to see? How can those be revealed to me? By asking yourself these questions, your brain looks a different direction versus asking the questions of how am I ever going to pay my bills? Or, why is money disappearing so fast? Asking those questions has a detrimental effect. So use the Neptune there, and also do things to put yourself into a spiritual alignment. Allow yourself to be cleared of negative thinking, to remove blocks through hypnosis, self-hypnosis techniques like tapping, EMDR, any of these types of modalities that will help you clear past trauma would be good for you now. So your second house is pulling money from two sources. It pulls from that Neptune and also the Jupiter in the 12th, which mirrors that energy of that Pisces of doing the magic. So that also says, light candles, say prayers, do affirmations. I know that I repeat this a lot, but it really, really works. And there is this idea that if you every morning did a meditation, an affirmation, and a visualization of having more confidence in yourself and more opportunities for money in just 60 days, you would have an abundance of these things. I have done it. It works. It's amazing. You have to try it. When we look at your investments, we have an empty house, but it is pulling money from Mercury in your 4th house. And that does indicate that money from investments or from your business is being supported by people in the family. So there might be that family members are coming together to help each other. Real estate is strong here. So maybe you're renting out a room. This is also like if you're selling houses, buying houses, doing construction, all of these things. Working at home is also highlighted. Maybe you have a side job that's in your basement or in the spare room, and all of that is happening. It's a way that you're pulling money in. When we look at your passive income sources and the relationship between Mercury and Neptune, we have an exact sextile. And that means that you can make quite a bit of money, and it's so much that it's noticeably more than previous months if you will take an action. Because it's a sextile, nothing happens unless you take an action. So actions would be based on communication, that is talking with others, or as we said, that spiritual connection. So the whole process would be visualizing that somebody's going to pick up the phone and then making the phone call, or visualizing that the deal is going to happen and then contact them in person and saying, I'm ready to make a deal. So having this two-step process can really help you accumulate money. When we look at money that is derived from your career, we have the South Node just entering that house. That's so interesting because the South Node hasn't been there in 18 years. It's going to be going through this house for 18 months. And so that is that money from career is actually going to get easier. That means you also may, over this next 18-month period, decide to go back to a job you used to have. And that's okay, although that may not make you a lot of money. It will remind you how much you've grown, how much more confident you are. So this can be really beneficial, and you don't have to stay in it for the entire 18 months. You may go back to a job you've had for just a few months and then recognize you're ready to move forward. This house is pulling money from Jupiter, and so we see that there is a very wide sextile between Jupiter and Neptune right now, and so we're not necessarily accumulating money in this area, so not necessarily making more money than previous months, but you're still making some money. And that money is based on a Jupiter in the 12th and Neptune in Pisces. So again, I sound like a broken record, but for you, it's spiritual things. It is prayer, it's meditation, it is aligning yourself with the spiritual abundance that is the world, because there is so much money. I mean, they're printing billions of dollars right now. And so that is putting yourself in alignment with that money so that opportunities land on your desk and that you make those applications or those entreaties for that at the right time. Pisces. So you guys are doing Chiron in the second house. You're going to be doing Chiron for some time. This talks about the healing that's going on between you and money itself. Whereas you may have wanted to be above it all when it comes to money, may not have been so interested in money, or maybe have been super interested in money, but there has been blocks from childhood or even ancestral blocks that your parents had and your grandparents had. This Chiron is about clearing those. And the way you do that, because it's in Aries, is actively doing things, such as asking yourself questions of what is my money blocks? How can I clear those blocks? What are my limitations when it comes to money? Why do I feel that some people can make millions of dollars every month, but I can only make minimum wage? Asking yourself really honest questions and then clearing that energy. And also, of course, because it's second house, clearing the idea of deserving, because those two are hand in hand here, where you say to yourself, I don't know that I deserve to have lots and lots of money, and yet you're okay with other people seeming to have lots and lots of money because for some reason they deserve it. So looking at that, of course, you can use different modalities. I like active modalities like tapping or EMDR for clearing money blocks. Those can be very useful with the Chiron because it gets right down into your subconscious and reprograms your mind. Now, you are pulling money here from Mars, which is right in that what we call Gokulan sector, right above the ascendant. So if we thought about the ascendant descendant line as the horizon, Mars is rising. So, when the moon is rising, when the sun is rising, we all notice it. Every human looks at it. Well, now Mars, the planet of action, your money planet, is rising. That means that you have enormous money opportunities, but you need to look around at them because it is not necessarily something that you are trained to do. So it is waking up every day and saying, how can I make money today? What are the money opportunities available to me today to really get that money mindset while you have this aspect for the next 4 weeks? Now, this also does say do things that are on the more magical side, and that is lighting candles, saying affirmations, visualizing, things like that really can help. When we look at your investments, we have an empty house, but we are pulling from Venus, which is in Gemini in the 4th, which does say that money can come from things done at home, also real estate, sales, construction, renting out a room, any sort of investments that are involving real estate. But most of this is doing a side business or doing your main business out of the house where you are working away. That can bring you passive income sources. There's also possibilities of joining with a family, and those who have more resources can give to those who have less, and therefore the resources multiply that way. Now, when we look at the relationship between Venus and Mars, we have a trine, and that means you will have more opportunities to make money through business or passive income sources than you have usually. That means you will be accumulating money. That is awesome. So you really want to look at that energy. When we look at your money derived from career, we have Pluto and Jupiter there. Pluto is going to be there for a couple more years, but Jupiter is only going to be there for the rest of the year. And Jupiter brings luck and protection, so you only have the rest of this year to gain money through your career this easily. And now you might be saying, it's not been that easy, but you have more luck to take more risks, to take chances, to say, I know things are hard, but I'm doing a great job. I want to raise. It is also saying that you need to transform how you make money. So if you're just working hour by hour and not having a way to multiply your income, you need to look at that. If you have been at the same wage for a long period of time, you need to know what position can I get into that I can make more money. So these are slow-moving planets. You don't have to answer these questions this month, but you need to plant the seeds so those questions could be answered. And you are pulling money derived from career from Saturn in your 12th house. That is, of course, if you're working in the medical field or working for a large company, you are definitely bringing in money, no question about it. Also, this means that for at least a couple of months, Saturn is out of your house of money derived from career, so that actually eases some of these restrictions. So there is some energy that you are making more money than you did last year in your job. So that's good news. When we look at the relationship between Saturn and Mars, super interesting. We have a semi-sextile. It's an out of sign semi-sextile. And that is an aspect which does indicate you will accumulate more money or make more money than you have in previous months. So again, we're showing two indicators that say you're making more money this month, but it is an out of sign indicator. So what could happen is maybe some money is coming in through a government source, and so that is being counted as, oh, okay, so I am making more money, but it's not necessarily just for my job. Or you're having to do overtime, which is tiring, and that's bringing a bigger paycheck, but it's not something that maybe is so sustainable. So, but overall, it looks like you are bringing in more money than usual, but do the magic and you can secure more from passive income sources, and that would be easier. And that's it. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't already, please subscribe. It really helps out the channel. If you have any questions or comments, leave them for me in the comment section below. Also, if you ever want a reading, send me an email. I'll give you all the details and prices. And in the meantime, I want you to have a really prosperous month.